So it's 1 o'clock. Welcome, everyone. Our January 14th Community Economic Development Committee meeting. And I'm calling this to order at 1:01 p.m. and acknowledging as ever that we're meeting today here in the District Hall on the traditional territory of the Sooke Nation. The district also includes lands held and stewarded by the Sianu Nations. So approval of the agenda, please. Okay. Have a second for that?
Chair, I do believe that you wanted to
Yes,
approve
you're
the
right.
agenda as with the addition of a new item 6.1 report from the Economic Development Manager.
Yes. And yes, thank you. That's excellent. So with that amended agenda, all in favor? Approved? Yes, all in favor. Thank you. I think that was Councillor Beto seconded that. Okay. So adoption of minutes of December 1st. Can I have those adopted as presented, please? Moved by Betos, seconded by St. Pierre. All in favor? Yes. Okay.
Sorry, just quickly, Councillor Bain, just a friendly reminder, we're in the committee of the whole, so you don't need a seconder on your motions. Or you do need a seconder?
That is,
Oh, sorry.
so committee of the whole, you are correct.
Yeah,
CEDC meetings we do, yes. Apologies.
that's good. Thanks for watching and catching. Okay, so unfinished business is the Sooke Region Cultural Plan. As all of you were here last month, with the Peter's exception, we had a really fulsome discussion. Thanks to JP Elson, who's here with us again today, as former chair of the SPA committee that brought through the 2022 report. Last month, we also heard from representatives from Sooke Fine Arts Society, of course. We have got a deeper understanding of the possibilities for growth and development of the arts sector in Sooke. And certainly we heard of its economic development benefits, co-benefits, along with tourism and community well-being, health and well-being. So I did quickly throw together a PowerPoint this morning. So if that could go up on the screen. Canvas. Yes. Canvas. Okay, this was Tony's stroke of genius last month. It does work out. I think it stands for, what does it stand for, Tony? Okay. Okay, so that's the title slide. Next slide, please. Okay, we'll begin with the newly adopted official community plan, the arts and culture section. And as you can see under community policies, there is a commitment by the district to continuing to invest in and diversify Sooke's vibrant and evolving arts and culture sector, which will bolster our economy, advance equity and reconciliation, and support community well-being. The district will further invest in cultural infrastructure, collaboration, and capacity building with local organizations, and we will honor and amplify the original and living cultures of Sooke's lands and waters by uplifting Indigenous cultural knowledge and practices. So that is embedded in our new official community plan as of December 9th. The next page also looks further into that community policy section. And again, I've just highlighted that connection with the Sooke. We also have within within that highlighted section, there's also a commitment to an updated arts and culture plan that provides a foundation for partnership models, cultural development processes, and cultural asset investment and management. So that's the context for where we're going, perhaps today. So on to the next slide, please. So looking, as JP told us very clearly, and as the cultural plan of 2011 also indicated as its top priority, is the creation of a cultural planning advisory committee, which we have dubbed, thank you, Tony, Canvas. Now, whether I've got that right, the Cultural Arts and Vibrancy Association of Sooke.
I would put culture on the arts, because cultural arts are always cultural.
Got it. Okay. So let's adjust that. I will adjust that. I think just for just for larger picture here, this is we'll continue this conversation next month, I feel, because at the end of this presentation, there are a few recommended first draft motions to council. So I'm hoping that we can have a look at those and take away and refine them if indeed they're not ready for prime time today. So there's the CEDC recommendation, creation of Canvas as a key framework for this work. So next slide, please. So the potential Canvas membership, which I threw together this morning, would include those groups potentially and others. Again, the arts covering such a broad range of things. Next slide. So as JP pointed out, and as the earlier plan identified, it's critical to have some sort of part-time paid coordinator operating this potentially new to form Canvas organization. I've noted here that the program of the Arts Reserve Fund is estimated to have about 136,000 according to the current financial plan. I believe there's an annual top-up of 60,000 a year. Through me to you, Rachel, is that true?
Just bear with me 1 second. I'm just actually looking that up.
Okay.
Carry on and I will raise my hand once I have that answer.
And then the floating question is this a partial role that the district's future MRD funded coordinator position might take on? So that's action 2. Moving on with the slide deck. So I was thinking here the Canvas membership could partner with the district to review the cultural plan and SPA recommendations in acting on OCP action number 82, updated arts and culture plan. And next slide, please. Also within the SPA review were a number of many items. Al recommended last month that I focus in on 4. So I'm trying to do that today. Task 3.1 is the recognition of and support for Indigenous creative activities. Now that's very aligned with what I read earlier from the OCP. There is also a note here about development of celebrations and festivals and events. And the SPA committee did recommend a creative Sooke funding program with which the district can assist promoters to host events. Now, of course, the MRDT tactical plan does include a $40,000 fund for events and festivals. So that would be a starting point for exactly that kind of creative Sooke funding program. So next slide. The SPA report also, as we discussed last month, the possibility of encouraging through zoning a business enterprise or cultural district area in the town core. And it's worth noting the district will be undertaking a full revision of the 2014 bylaw next year, as Mr. Riley told us on Monday night. Next slide. So here I've come up with these 4 draft motions, and I leave them on the screen for you to look at. The first is that the CEDC committee recommends that council support in principle the establishment of Canvas, the Culture, Arts, and Vibrancy Association of Sooke. Second motion would be that the CEDC committee recommends the council direct staff to explore funding options for a part-time Canvas coordinator through the Sooke program, the Arts Reserve Fund, and or other sources. Next slide. That the CEDC committee recommends the council request that the district Sooke Memorandum of Understanding Working Group discuss mutually beneficial coordination of creative activities. And finally, that the CEDC committee recommends that council direct staff to report back on the possibilities of creating a business enterprise zone, i.e. cultural district, within the next Sooke zoning bylaw. So that's what I've got. And I leave it there for CAO Gray.
Sorry, I had the answer to your initial question there. As through this Sooke program of the arts bylaw, currently it's set up to have 3% of the building permit revenue deposited to that fund every year. So for example, for 2024, Our last audited numbers, the building permit revenue was approximately $600,000. So that resulted in $18,000 being transferred to that fund every year. And then I believe there's exactly. So it's all currently the way the bylaw is structured. It's contingent on building permit revenue. And so I believe last year, 2025, our preliminary numbers are around 400,000 or so. So just to keep that in mind. Carry on.
May I speak as well, through the chair? I think we need to add the Sooke Music and Arts Festival to your membership. And I just want clarification if the EMCS Theater Arts is the actual society, or is it separate from that? Because I think both should be on there. That said, I had a meeting with the EMCS Society yesterday with regards to the Sooke Music and Arts Festival, which is an annual festival, as you know. And they were meeting with me to talk about funding. So we did talk about MRDT tactical plan year one, stating that there was some money dedicated in that budget to growing events. So I just want to bring that forward that we were not looking to recreate a brand new iconic festival. They've been operating for 10 years and they've included arts and culture in with the music festival for the last, I think it's 2 or 3 years. And they desperately would love to grow that into a more iconic Sooke annual event. So this is what the conversation was about. So I just want to plant that seed for you, not to leave them out, that we already have a dedicated festival that we could grow and we could potentially grow with some of the MRDT dollars. I've also identified a brand new grant for them that they would be eligible to apply for in 2027, up to $200,000. That would absolutely be a game changer because, and I've tied them together with a very well-known media group out of BC, and it's called Event Seekers. Media Seekers, Event Seekers, it's Jim Barr. Anyway, so we tied him into the meeting yesterday. They had already met Jim through a workshop last year, so it went so well. So they're all putting their heads together
That
to
is good
come
to
up
know,
with a
Gail.
plan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, good to know. So now that I've made all that, I would like to survey the committee, and let's hear what your thoughts on last month and what you've just heard. Councillor Beddoes, you'd like to go first? Al, as we call him.
Then you hit me with all that after. I did have this question. First of all, it'll draft motion, but you tell me that we should go away and think about that. Right. Oh, sorry.
That's a little bit more casual here today, but anyways, yeah, those 4 draft motions, I have problems with the last one. And when is our next meeting? Can someone please, because I might be in Mexico and I don't want to miss it. What's
Next regular meeting?
no, this committee?
It'll be the first Monday of March.
February.
March.
Sorry, February. I'm already,
And what is
I'm in
that?
February.
Okay, I won't be here. So I want to speak to it now. if I
Yes.
could. Okay, anyways, I'm okay with the other ones. They're just, what we're interested in doing. But I have a little bit of problem with this because I'd like to see it flushed out a bit, exactly what creating a business enterprise zone. I mean, I don't want to go to staff and say, hey, you guys go out there and, beat the bushes and look around for a zone. I'd rather have somebody come to us and say, this is what we want to recommend as a zone and bring that to council. I think with, especially with the election year coming up, staff is busy. And I'm loath to put that 4th one on there. And if it comes to council, unless somebody has some more explanation, I'll be voting against it. Right.
Good points, Al, and I'll just note that could be rewritten to suggest that consider the possibilities when creating the next zoning bylaw.
As it stands, I can't support it, but if
Right.
you want to go rewrite it, that's
Yeah,
fine.
that's clear.
Now, in your second part of your question, you asked me to do a recap of what we've done so far. My first impression is that we've done a lot of whirling around, but I haven't seen a whole lot come out of it, other than some good people working on things.
Well, wait,
Let's just
we're gonna deal with that a little later.
Okay, I thought you asked for my opinion,
No.
so, okay,
No,
okay.
so I would like to call I'm gonna call JP up at some point soon, if you don't mind, and we'll talk about Al's very good question, as we discussed last month, what exactly is a business enterprise zone and a cultural district? As you explained last month, we'll maybe get a refresher on that, but let's circle the table and see if there are other questions for you when you get to the mic. Tony, I think you were up next, then Catherine.
Actually, it follows on someone Al was asking. I was curious actually whether or not the creation of a business enterprise zone was included in or could be included in an employment land strategy
Through the chair.
through the chair.
Thank you.
This question to staff,
Is that a question to Rachel?
to whoever on staff might have some insights.
Sorry, apologies, Councillor St. Pierre. Can you repeat the question?
Sure can. What I'm wondering is the fourth draft motion that was brought forward, direct staff to report back on the possibility of creating a business enterprise zone within the next zoning bylaw. As Council Beddoes has pointed out, it could be a big job, but I know that Ms. Scott has worked on a grant proposal for an employment land strategy, and I'm wondering if this would not fit into that piece. So yep.
And I think we can reword this,
Well,
this fourth motion, if indeed we want to proceed at all.
it's
Just to ensure that staff would consider the possibility.
it's possible this could be reworked to include a business enterprise zone cultural district in the employment land strategy. That's what I'm thinking, but it depends on what's going on. It may already be there. If it's already there, then this is unnecessary. If it's not there and it can be put in, then we can put it in. If it can't be put in, then we have to come up with a third option. But I want to know what's going on.
Apologies, just wanted to confirm. We're not 100% sure if that specific thing was included in our application. However, it is a like for like thing, so we could anticipate if we were successful, that's something we could say we would like to include in the project as well. So it's not a deal breaker, I guess, that
Okay,
it couldn't
so
happen.
would it be helpful at this point in time to ask that something like this be incorporated in the work that's going to be done in the employment land strategy? And that could be the nature of this particular motion. And that would take care of the issues around staff capacity, because we'd be looking at grant funding, or at least making sure that we had budget capacity available to do the work once it starts.
Correct.
Does that
Yeah.
sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, that's what I got.
Okay. So will that be captured by staff for discussion next month? Or do I need to be taking notes here and preparing another one of these?
Do you want us to make amendments to this motion as it stands?
Unless we move it. Scott, yes. Oh, you're right.
We're casual here today. I just wanted to say that I support this plan in principle, and in general, the motions. I agree with Councillor St. Pierre about the employment land strategy. A couple of questions, I guess, is regarding jobs, like how the measures of success look for this plan. How many jobs are being created? We have local event planners and marketers. What we don't have is an organization to oversee that. We don't have a destination marketing organization that can promote these festivals outside of Sooke and to local people. What the economic benefit is of the arts. JP and I have spoken many times about arts being part of an economic development strategy. and what the measures are for that in the community. How much money are we spending in the community for one event? We don't know. So I think that needs to be part of any kind of service agreement, is reporting back the economic benefit of that funding. And then how are you going to evaluate Indigenous inclusion? Is it by board members of these organizations that you're funding? Is it by events at a festival or an arts event? I don't know. That's something that I think needs to be considered, maybe through the memorandum of understanding working group. And Sooke Nation could potentially give you some feedback about that, but that's a couple of questions I have just off the top. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for those. I think it was very much when and if Canvas is created, that would be the time for that group to begin looking at metrics and ensuring everything is aligned. Scott.
Yeah, I would agree with everything Catherine mentioned. I would like to, and I think as well with Al, get a better description of what it actually means for business enterprise zoning and cultural districts. So
JP, do you want to come up?
yeah, so I can have a better idea there. And then the second part, maybe before JP jumps up there, is I just had a meeting with the Sooke Nation, and one of the things that I think potentially can be difficult is making sure that they have enough capacity to be able to be involved. And maybe there's a way, if they identify that they don't have that capacity, that maybe they can identify somebody that can help with that, at least getting some information back to them. So then they can make their own judgment on where they can send that capacity. Maybe their interest maybe not be there, but it might be in the business community development. So maybe creating some dialogue with the Sooke Nation about where their interest might lie in some of these categories that we've identified, and then where they can see themselves getting involved at that point might steer us in a certain direction as well with that collaboration idea. So and I'm definitely interested to hear more from JP about the business enterprise zone, because we had lots of questions for that.
JP, would you like to come to the mic? I do have your report in front of me if it would be useful to reference, or can you just wing it?
Okay. Is there a specific question, or do you want to
Well,
sort of?
let's go to the top level. What exactly is the notion of a business enterprise zone or cultural district as recommended in your 2022 report?
What it is as varied as the number of communities that set one up. In the sense, it's very individual to each specific community. What works in Paris won't work in Sooke, and vice versa. So one of the ways I can address it is examples of zones that I've seen that have worked. A lot of it, the first step is to create within the community an acknowledgement and understanding that there's value, actual economic development value, rather than just, oh, we should be nice to our artists type value. So I've seen things where everything from Nashville has a dedicated building where it's basically, think of it as a business co-op, but it's all culture related organizations, and that they are in there at a lot of the work that is done by and for them within that building is with respect to business acumen and building it. Because many of them are very creative, but tax return just blows them away. So things like that. And then there's things like the one in Nashville, you have a 2-year limit. You can be in there for 2 years, then you have to move out and start a business so that other people can come in. I've seen it in Austin from on the flip side or the lower side of that. Little things in Austin, like on their main street during festivals or even on weekends, there'll be musician parking only zones. so that they can actually have a place to unload their stuff. It sounds minimal and perhaps silly to some, but it's an acknowledgement that actually has value. That musicians are part of this. So and then they have and they do have Austin has dedicated musician parking all the time in places and everything in between. In the sense you look at, let's look at Langford. I think Langford meant well with what they're doing, and it's certainly better than what they had before, which was very little. But as I touched last time, in my opinion, the problem they have is that they've made it a destination. You must, plan to go there. Where most of the stats will tell you that the majority of spending in arts and culture is often impulse buying. So put it in an area where people are going to be anyways, rather than force them to come to there with it. They'll come there only if they have a specific item or matter in mind. So put culture and arts where the people are. So now, with respect to costs, I have seen things, and just to anticipate a question from Mr. Beddoes, yes, I have seen communities that use tax breaks, say that if you're in this zone, your property tax or your business license cost or something will be less than what it would be if you were, a big box store or a retail outlet or something like that. Because, and all the stats will tell you that the cumulative value of arts and culture in this country is absolutely massive. But there's very, very few rich artists. The vast majority of them are not. I mean, they exist at slightly above hobbyist level. So they can't afford. I mean, they would benefit greatly from having a storefront, but they can't afford it. And that's where things like some communities have in these buildings that are dedicated. There will be a retail places for their artists to sell. So the tax breaks would be of benefit. I know, and especially in election year, those type of things are difficult. But they're not huge. We're not. I don't think it's a matter of a dramatic difference. Again, it's come back around. It's an acknowledgement that culture has value to the economic development of the community, and they will work. You find these people are extremely hardworking, very enthusiastic, very dedicated to whatever it is their craft or service is, but they are not the greatest business people. And that's where I think the community can come in and in whatever way possible, assist them. And as they become more financially well off, the community will as well. So it's not, I mean, it can be a very specific zone, between, I'll just pick streets, First Avenue and 7th Avenue, and a square like Austin has you look at it's on a map, you can see it in downtown, and same in Nashville at a lot of those places. Paris has one as well, but it doesn't have to be big. It certainly initially, and I know that sometimes when I speak and when I write on things, I put forward concepts that may appear to be too big or too soon for a smaller community, and I acknowledge that, but it's a goal. You don't have to start with that. We can start small. And again, reference the comment I had with Mr. Beddoes last time, guaranteed small victories. Make sure the guarantee is there before you even start.
Thank you, JP. So questions, Al?
I'm sorry. Anyways, thanks again for that, because it did clear up some matters for me. One of the things you did say that did strike home, it does not necessarily have to be a district. It can be all of Sooke.
Yeah.
And if somebody's got some sort of struggling art studio over here, it doesn't have to be moved over to this
Correct.
area down there. We could, as a council, explore some tax reduction for the property.
Yeah.
So that helped a great deal. But I guess to me, I would still need somebody in regards to this last one, what we're talking about, and that's the clarification that you're giving us. Somebody from the community to draw something up and bring it to us, rather than us tell staff to go down there, and a lot of the staff may not even live in this community. I'd rather,
Yeah, and it
I'd
is-
rather have it community driven, and somebody coming to us and say, look, I want to establish Church Road down, or, you know, over here 4 blocks to be the cultural district, and that would attract people. The other thing, of course, is we have a tough time because we don't have a whole lot of commercial rental space, whether you know, most of it's very, very expensive.
2 things, that type of work, I think you're absolutely correct in if I'm understanding correctly, to reduce the expectations on your existing staff, because this is the economic side of arts and culture is pretty specialized stuff.
I agree.
Hopefully hopefully it comes through when you read my report that it is pretty specialized stuff. So it is something that maybe a consultant would do or something like that.
Yeah, I guess with this committee, I mean, that struck, if it's struck and when it's up and running, that would be the expertise that I'd be looking for to come through with, you know, some sort of recommendation to council, whether I'm here or not. And to have a look at that possibility. I don't disagree that cultural is very, very important for our community and any community.
I mean,
And especially with us here on the West Coast, we have the West Coast flair, which is a good selling point. I know, you know, Miss Scott over there, she's very big on that as well. So,
I mean, to follow up on your idea about having it as within the general community rather than a specific area, an ultimate beautiful thing would be that, but have a centralized point, whether it be a building or a person within the community or something where these creative entrepreneurs can actually come to for assistance. So whether it be a you know, building or an office within somewhere, and say, okay, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to go talk to and we talked about the vibrancy coordinator, and we also talked about, perhaps we shouldn't call it that. Yeah, but those 2 things together, I think would be a great step forward. And not as expensive as you might think they are, because like I say, don't, just because, I mean, I suggest pretty large things, that's, you know, it's called 2030, it could be 2050. But you gotta have a goal.
Yeah, I really appreciate all the info. Thanks, JP. Kind of enlightened me for a couple of questions I had. I think one of the things that could help is maybe identifying a community like ours that this has happened, and identifying the pros and cons to what they went through. That might help us and steer us in that direction a bit. I also like the idea of sort of the co-op idea, but I agree, it's not the artist that will probably drive that, and it's not to take anything away from the artists, but I agree, they're definitely focused on their art and less on the business side. And I've dealt with a lot of artists locally here, and I would say that's probably where their capacity might be lacking. And I know that we have talked a little bit about a business co-op, let's call it, where people can come and get business advice and talk with maybe business leaders and be able to communicate some of that need. And this actually falls into very similar to what we were talking about, the nonprofits as well. The support for the artists might be in somebody that's available to them to talk about marketing. Maybe there's a cooperative that's collected that if an artist wants to sell their goods, they just go talk to that cooperative person that can help them with the assistance of selling those goods. Maybe the co-op has a percentage, just like a business would. So if you're trying to sell your art through our system, we might take 15-20% to support that, but you also then quickly have your art in a sales spot. And then maybe we identify for now, when we were talking about lack of commercial space, maybe, and I'm throwing this at the planners, maybe, sorry about that, guys. But maybe we take a look at a temporary location that can help us develop this idea. Doesn't necessarily have to be a commercial space, but we identify it as a temporary commercial space that then we can move that. Let's say we've got 20 artists over that next year that are now part of the system. Then we can identify a commercial space with commercial operators that might have that space available to them, where we've now built the business. It's successful. There's a proof of concept. And now there's an actual space that we're looking for that we can fill commercially. And why I love that idea is because I think it's important that if we're building a co-op, that the whole idea is that, one, we're not competing with anything locally. So that has to happen. But two, the idea, and I really like the idea of maybe a year or two where they get this tax break or whatever the break that they get, free rent. But the goal would be to build that brick and mortar so that they built up their business. Maybe 3 artists were able to connect and go, hey, we can go rent that space over there and do our separate idea there. So I can see the buildup of all this, but I believe it also would take maybe someone like JP or a business person that may be connected with what we were talking with Gail about building a business community support structure. And that can kind of coincide with what maybe you're bringing up, and maybe the two of them can kind of mold together, I'm thinking. So.
Thanks. Good point. I'm curious, Gail, yes, how does all that resonate with the Shoreline?
I love
Peter,
it.
here it's-
I'm a huge fan and a huge believer that arts and culture is the lifeblood of a community. I have worked on so many communities in the 3 Western provinces, and they're small and more rural. And arts and culture is the lifeblood. It's the vibrancy. I can provide you some best practice examples of smaller rural communities and their cultural zoning and plans. I've worked on those in the past. But what rose immediately to me in this conversation is I wonder if the Sooke transportation master plan includes some kind of language around how you move people in a cultural zone without the use of vehicles. It's walkability. I know we've done a lot of work on our master plan, transportation master plan, and I know we're looking for reduction of vehicles. We don't have parking. We have an issue. So when you look at creating a culture zone in a place like Sooke, we have to revisit our master plan for transportation. We would have to look at how you design it so you can move the people all around those blocks that have been dedicated for culture zone without the use of vehicles, without the parking issues. Because I don't think we're going to fix that very fast. So it has to be designed so it's slow travel, walkability, bikes, that sort of thing. So it was just something that rose right away to me. I don't think we have that in our master plan for transportation.
Strangely, I think that's exactly what I was about to comment on, and it's going to be sort of a question to JP, but possibly to staff as well. Given that we don't necessarily have parking or the transportation infrastructure to actually get, for example, 1,000 people to a venue to attend a concert, even if we built the venue. It feels like we need to be very careful in terms of what you're describing, which is the place to put the culture is where people already are, so that you can actually, have those impulse purchases and have the economic development spin-offs that we'd like to see, with, with restaurants and so on and so forth. That translates to me that you probably want it somewhere where you have most of your restaurants already, or at least a lot of the activities are going to happen where that's already happening. But we also need clearly more space, for example, what Scott's describing, a number of artists to get together, cooperative ventures, and so on and so forth. It feels like we need a number of different potential initiatives and storefronts. Maybe one with, a vibrancy coordinator or whatever, but it's looking decentralized to me. but not entirely decentralized. So how do you actually strike the balance so that you don't overwhelm your parking, but you still
Yeah.
actually allow the vibrancy? Anyway, I'm just,
I certainly understand why you would say that. And for many people looking at it, it does appear it would need to be decentralized.
let me translate. How do we provide focus
Yeah.
while allowing for our transportation network to allow for enough spread on the venues that it works?
Okay. I think it's understanding of what the role of the community is. The community in no way should in any way, shape, or form try to dictate what the art or culture or activity is. Because people in this room are many of us are not creative entrepreneurs. We're business people. We're part of the district staff, whatever it is, but we're not making, paintings. What is not decentralized is all the other type of assistance that creative people need to become successful that is not creative in and of itself. That's where the business acumen part comes in, and that can be centralized.
Okay, so the resources to support the community.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, the storefront.
Yep.
The coordinator needs to be centralized. But,
Yes, absolutely.
but the rest of it, from what I'm gathering from what Ms. Scott was saying, and when we look out at our parking, we wouldn't necessarily be looking at a 2,000 seat venue initially or
No.
anything along those lines, and we'd have to figure out what to do about our festivals.
And I would start outdoors too.
Thank you.
Guaranteed victories.
Okay, I'm a little conscious of time, so that's 5 more minutes on.
Okay.
5 more minutes on this subject.
And I'll have one last comment.
Well, Scott's going to ask you a question, and then Catherine may have something.
Okay.
No? Okay.
I just thought of, again, and I appreciate, again, because I never thought about that, JP, that, again, having people go to where they're already at, those impulse buyers, I agree. It's more art that they're going to be impulse buying. So, and because of us being in Sooke and not having the parking, let's say, but I believe the majority of the people that would be coming in terms of filling that large parking lot that we have would probably be most likely in the summer, I'm assuming. So maybe there's an opportunity temporarily again to talk with the school board and create a shuttle system to get those people to and from maybe those locations temporarily to proof of concept of actual location that might fit. So we've got EMCS and we've got about 3 or 4 schools technically in this vicinity that we could have a shuttle bus be shuttling people to and from these locations. It wouldn't be ideal because it's usually where they park and walk and whatnot, but to start the process to identify that this makes sense from an economic standpoint, maybe we work with that local area that we might be able to park people in where they're not using it. Maybe they get a bit of funding as well for the school board. I don't know if it would work legally for them or not, but it's an option. And then that's a proof of concept for that following year to identify a space that we may want to turn into a parking lot now because we've actually proof of concept this process. So just an idea, I thought.
Okay, yeah, so I'll quickly make a few notes here. Thank you, JP. Good conversation. I'm going to let you jump in. Oh, well, go ahead.
A couple of things. Just with respect, and I'm sorry, I was sitting in the back of the room on your list of suggested groups that would be part of Canvas. It was a pretty small print. It's right near the beginning. There's a list. Okay, well, that one. Okay, when I look at that, absolutely agree with that. However, culture is more than just, when I look at that, those are more arts based. Don't forget the value of culinary arts. Sports in and of itself, although everybody, they try to distinguish themselves, is in fact part of your culture. So they should be part of that as well. Lastly, with respect to, the suggestion, well, can we look at other communities? I'll give you a quick example. Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Dying town. The average age was like 80-ish. They came together and they did it through community bonds. They bought bonds in and of themselves. And they had one thing going for them, the myth that Al Capone had once visited there and been underground in these tunnels. There's no actual proof of that, but the myth was there. It is true that they were running booze out of there because my great uncle used to do it in the 30s. But they came together to capitalize on that and skip over all the successes they have had. Now that town is full 12 months of the year because of the spa that they built with that, because all the tourists came in, and just during the summer, and when you talk, yes, initially it's going to be the summer, but what we really should be aiming at is filling the shoulder seasons. So that's where your tourism is lacking right now. And Moose Jaw has done it. But what they do, they about 10 years ago when they knew it, every year they would close down the street because they had to replace water mains. Probably they did. However, the next summer they had announced they just discovered a new tunnel that may have been used for. It's true. And I went on a tour and I say, and they noticed it, and they made it look like, yeah, it could be. But I went on a backstage tour, and the tunnels, this new tunnel is completely round. That is not the way they would have built the tunnels when the Chinese immigrants were living underground. They wouldn't have built a completely round tunnel. So the town in and of itself was making its own myth. It can be done. And that town is now probably one of the most economically viable communities in that province. Yeah. 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 Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, we have a lot of UFO
Yeah.
sightings here.
There you go.
too. So that could be part of it, or we could get an Ogopogo out in the harbor. It's an
Something.
option.
Yeah.
You know, this is a great conversation. I'm sorry we can't continue
absolutely.
much longer. So it seems like you've given us some clarity again on your 2022 recommendations, that the importance of a single building as a hub, a business cooperative kind of venture incubator for these startups.
An old church that nobody's using. Perfect.
Yeah, I wish we had more of those kind of
Yeah.
Powell River style industrial era buildings. And Gail's going to look up some examples. You mentioned Moose Jaw. Maybe there's some other rural.
Oh, yes, I know about Moose Jaw. I actually worked in Regina for the government there. But I did want to say one thing, that EMS Theater Arts, we need to make sure we put in EMS CS,
Society.
the society, because she overlooks 6 schools and all of their facilities.
I pulled up short because I ran out of space on that
Okay.
slide. So I agree. Sports group,
Yeah.
you know, the wider range of culture, EMCS Society included. Let's go back to those motions quickly.
Just wanted to comment about that parking at EMCS.
Herman?
That parking at EMCS is in effect now. Any organization can arrange for it. It's a small fee.
Yeah.
And the Lions do it all the time. And they will fall over themselves to make parking available
Yeah.
for whatever. So it's a good point by Scott. So yeah, it's there.
Do we need to run through these again, or we'll look at them again next month? Okay, all right. So we'll call a close on this now. And thank you, JP, again.
No problem.
Okay. Haven't mentioned today, welcome to Greg, who is the District of Sooke's new corporate officer. Thank you. And he's here from the West Country and Merritt. And
East of us.
east of us. He dealt with the flooding in Merritt back in 2021. So he has some experience of what we're beginning to see in this community. Rachel?
Sorry, I just wanted to add before we started the next topic, just to close off this, just a couple tidbits as far as the shuttle goes. The district recently partnered with BC Transit to do a shuttle for the summer market or our anniversary that happened at the local farm. So we had a partnership with BC Transit. So I know, similar to what Councillor Beddoes has said, there is options out there for stuff like that. And as well as I wouldn't get too caught up on the membership list. At this time, I think that's premature. I think if this was something supported by council, we would do a call to ask I would assume that's might
Yeah.
be a staff recommendation, is to make sure we haven't missed anybody in any various groups and do a call and then
Yes.
come back to council with further information and
Yeah.
et cetera. So.
Okay, good. Also on the subject, shuttle buses, just this morning at the Age Friendly Committee, Search and confirmed that the seniors bus is now roadworthy and ready to roll again after 3 years. So it too can be, and Sooke also has a bus, which has been utilized to get people to the flats for Canada Day in the past. So there's some good opportunities there. We finished our unfinished business for now. We're moving on to 6.1, which I believe was now Gail, will give us a 10-minute maximum summary of what you've been up to. If that's possible within 10 minutes. I don't think it is, but.
Sorry. I was just gonna do a review of the presentation I made to council the other night. Were all of you, did you key into, if you were not at the council meeting, did you bring it up? No, so I can.
I did
review.
share a text version of what you presented Monday
Yeah,
night with the
thanks,
group
and you did send that to me.
yesterday, so not easy. lead time.
Okay. Check it. I thought I was organized, but I'm not. Oh. Here it is. Thank you, Jeff. You did send it. The Community Economic Development Committee overview at Monday's council meeting included yeah. So I just went through the fact that the Community Economic Development Department reports to Planning and Development to Chris Marshall. There's one person that is dedicated to community economic development, being an officer, that being me. It amounts to a percentage of the overall district's budget of 1%. Is responsible for destination tourism, design, management, marketing, which includes the MRDT now. Small business cooperative services, support services from startup to retention to expansion. And it also includes support for not-for-profit organizations for the arts and culture. It's not just a business, entrepreneurial, commercial business. Community service agreement, support services, which is now the community investment program. My position does support a number of local not-for-profits, more on the capacity building end of it, and providing them information about grants they may not know about, that sort of thing. Connecting them with expertise so that they can come to their meetings and share information. It's about relationship building, network development, and I've grown that network exponentially in 3 years, which has resulted in us being able to open doors at the provincial and federal level for grants and consideration of grants. A big part of my work is involving grant pathfinding, finding the money, follow the money, and know where it's coming from and know that we're eligible for it. Support services to planning and development as required. An example of that would be working with the staff in planning to put together the application to the province for the REDIP grant so that we could potentially receive money to do the employment land strategy. And also support to this committee, the standing committee. So that's in nutshell, kind of what I do. So
A quick reminder,
ongoing-
Gail, that we're a bit time stressed,
Okay.
so please don't go too detailed, but give us the hype.
So just quickly, we're working through the MRDT. I'm gonna say how we are going to manage it internally. We haven't come up with a final decision on that, but we're working through it and we should have something fairly soon. One of the most important things we have to do for the MRDT right now is set up a MRDT task committee. And we have to identify people to be on that. The Juan de Pico Strait corridor is going really well. I want to set up a presentation date that we can bring the whole report forward to council and to the CED committee, should you wish. Dylan Rose, who's the lead of Destination Canada, has offered to come and present to council. And I think that would be a real good idea. Even though we haven't presented the final report, we're working away on the projects. They're ticking away. We've got the electric bike touring mapping already mapped out between the Pacific Northwest and South Vancouver Island. What else? Okay. And yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. And the one major goal I have for my department, and I've been supported by our CAO and my director of planning and development, is to go forward and try and get eligibility for the Island Coastal Trust, Economic Trust grant funding. If we can get that, we will have achieved three things. MRTD money we never had, provincial REDIP money we never had, and Island Coastal Economic Trust money we never had. Together, that will be a game changer for Sooke. And so and I know that most of my work is focused around tourism and destination marketing development, but it's a powerhouse industry. When you look at that compared to other industries, it brings in so much GDP in Canada, it's unbelievable. And I believe that's the right focus for Sooke from an economic driver point of view. I'm not saying that we shouldn't look at other industries, of course we should, but recognize the money's going to come from tourism destination management. That's it in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to, Gail, you struck on it the other day in regards to this partnership with the Washington State, the Juan de Pico Network. And I think that whole idea is brilliant. It's too bad that we're having the economic problems with the Americans at the moment, but that will pass. And I'm looking forward to in 3 years, I guess it is, that they have a different point of view, because I have a lot of American friends over there, and even the Democrats, but I won't get into that. But they look to us as more neighbors than they do down to Olympia. So I applaud you on that. Keep pushing on that. I think it's a good idea.
May I just respond to that?
Sure.
Just yesterday, there was a news announcement that there has been a legislative advocacy committee made up of MLAs for border towns between BC and Washington State. Now that just goes to show you we were on the right track. We weren't going to say, no, we're not going to work with our neighbors. We need them as much as they need us. And now that legislative group has just been struck. I think it's the MLA from, is it, what was it? It's around Cultus Lake and what would be the border over there and the American equivalent of an MLA. So you can see that government is looking at how are we going to deal with this? So we're in at the right time and doing the right thing.
Scott, you had a question?
Yeah, I think we won't probably have to wait 3 years. We have FIFA coming, and all of our 3 countries are gonna have to figure out how to get tourists across that border properly, so.
Vanity.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that we talked about sort of a supportive group for small business. And it's very relative to everything that we're talking about with JP that brought up the arts side of it. So we have, I think, an opportunity to, and we talked about it I think the last time we met. And I just found out that we might have an MRDT person that sits for the MRTT money that comes in. Maybe there's somebody sitting in that position, and maybe it's a collective spot that one person can actually do. Because again, I think we identified that there's potential with a lot of the nonprofits that we have. Let's say we have 20 nonprofits in Sooke here, and that they all do grant writing, they all have administration costs, they all have marketing, they all have new business support. Very similar to what we were just talking with JP's needs for the cultural side. So we have small business potential entrepreneurs that need that support. We have the cultural and art side that need that support. And then we have all of our nonprofit groups that need that sort of support. I think we identified that there's potential that the nonprofits also don't have capacity in some of these levels around administration, marketing, grant writing, and such. So if we're sending, let's say, I don't know, $20,000 to a nonprofit, I think it would be wise if we were to identify when that money goes to that nonprofit, how it's being spent, and is there a possibility to us to reduce the money that's going to the nonprofit, but actually give them more benefit to the dollars that they're spending. So let's say we give them $20,000 worth of nonprofit money coming from the city, but maybe we take $5,000 of that back and collectively with all the other groups, have somebody that does grant writing, has somebody that does all the administration for all the nonprofits. They have to be identified through that person that they deserve that sort of funding. And again, around marketing, small business support, they're almost all connected to what we were talking about, building small entrepreneur program, to the cultural arts side, to the business needs, to the nonprofit needs. They're all very similar, I think, in terms of what capacity they might need. So if we give $20,000 to someone and they're writing grants, maybe they're not spending that $2,000 toward grant writing efficiently, where we could take that $2,000, give it to more of a cohort, and you just have to apply for that grant writer to grant write for your nonprofit, and you'll probably get more bang for the buck out of it, if you ask me. So maybe there's an opportunity to collectively arts, business, nonprofit, small business, to almost collectively put all those together. So.
Peter, would you like to come up and give us an update on the Shoreline Business Cooperative? It's also, I just quickly note, Christina at our communications department, she is working on a community investment program. So she's looking at all the ways in which we do fund community groups and finding more efficiencies. Tony's often mentioned capacity building. And before you begin, I'll let Councillor St. Pierre, he was next in the queue.
Yeah, I had a question for Ms. Scott.
Yes.
If I can ask. The First Nations on both sides of the border are a cornerstone of the corridor project. But I think Mr. Taylor alluded to it, or Scott alluded to this. Often there's capacity issues in terms of actually, just having capacity. One of the things that I've been and I've spoken with people in the trenches, and they've said you should really be hiring basically people in your community, in your First Nation community, to potentially act as an Indigenous coordinator to provide a staff that could potentially be embedded, wherever is suitable, but maybe at the district, who knows? And this would provide continuity. So for example, when our council changes in a year, when their council changes, when they change, projects like the corridor project don't necessarily stall out because we're waiting for a decision, we're waiting for a response, and there's not much capacity to begin with. And right now we're figuring ourselves out again. So I'm curious as to whether or not the MRDT or the destination project have been actively considering putting resources towards making sure that those positions are in place and the communication channels are firm.
That's a good question. The one thing I can tell you is that the Wanda Fuka Tourism Project corridor project has a standing committee or a steering committee, sorry. And on that steering committee, there is First Nations representation from both sides, the Pacific Northwest and our South Island side. I've just reached out to Taryn Sam, who is with the Chinook, it's the Esquimalt anyways, Esquimalt First Nations, and it isn't Esquimalt, what is it? Songhe, Songhe, to ask her if she might want to replace Christina Clark because she has moved off of that Indigenous Partnership, Prosperity Partnership group. One of the things that came up was Destination Canada recognizes we need some dedicated funding for an administrative person. And it wasn't sure whether they were going to be able to come up with the money, but I've just been made aware this past week, yes, there will be some money. So we will be able to hire somebody. I don't know how much money it'd be, and I don't know if it would be a full-time, but at least it will be administrative support. I would have no problem whatsoever of that being a First Nations person.
So just to follow up, very quickly, I suggest that you speak to the people involved who will have a very good idea what that job description look like in order to make it most effective. It may not simply be admin, but I'm letting you know that there's more details that could really help it work better.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a last chance dance with Peter Dukakis, who is leaving the position in 10 weeks, I think I
10
heard.
weeks, yeah, retire in 10 weeks.
Yeah. Member of the first Community Economic Development Committee here in Sooke, and perhaps to respond to some of Scott's comments.
Yeah, absolutely. You got me very excited with that last comment that you made. And I just wanted to let you know that my last 10 weeks, potentially 12, will be focusing on the Sooke Regional Business Services Co-op, tying up some loose ends. Tandy Williams will be taking over my role, so it won't end. She will be she's a director of operations and head of our economic development portfolio. So the momentum will continue. But one of the last things I'm doing, we had a meeting yesterday with Gail and the chamber, and we're meeting with Royal Roads University and some key stakeholders in the West Shore next week, I believe, to talk about some funding. So one of the things that I'll be writing, we have a full-time dedicated proposal writer on staff now. And I'll be writing a proposal for the Shoreline Business Services, formerly Sooke Regional Business Services Co-op. Right. And it'll be to really identify the impact and potential of the business sector. So what we're going to do is we're going to identify the economic drivers for the region. That'll be the leading project. And it's just a skeleton sketch of what I have. We only had the meeting yesterday. But in order to identify the local and regional economic drivers, we're going to be doing an evaluation on the impact and potential of a few business sectors, arts and cultural sector, First Nations, nonprofit, tourism, and local government. So really an inventory of what they're all doing, which really speaks to, and I'll kind of close it at the end, what we talked about last time. Evaluate the impact and the factors that contribute to regional economic development. So we'll talk about business and attraction resources, community events, consumer demographics and profiles, geographical opportunities and challenges. And this is where the thing comes in, shared resources. As a not-for-profit, we're a fairly large not-for-profit with 40 staff members. We own 2 buildings. We have some real estate investments. We have a dedicated proposal writer. And one of the things, I've worked in many rural communities across BC. One of the first things I do is in economic development, I do an inventory of existing resources. So you're right. In a lot of cases, you'll have 5 or 6 not-for-profits who have $10,000 on same line. Let's pick any one line item, be economic development. I have 5,000, you have 10, you have 6, you have 4. Between the 3 of you, you have maybe 20,000, 50,000. But because you're working in silos, you don't have an impact. But if you take that money, let's say it's 30,000 or 50,000, and you apply for a matching grant, then you have $100,000 and you have some significant impact you can make in the community with that. So part of this identification of the local economic drivers will be to do just that, take that inventory and then evaluate and identify provincial and federal resources and funding that can help in terms of business services, economic development, and supports that are there. So that's just a rough, that's from our quick meeting yesterday. I haven't looked at all our notes yet, but that's what we mapped out that we would do. And that's the final proposal that I'll be writing in my role as executive director for the Worklink Employment Society. And I think the potential of everything that we talk about, sorry? I didn't hear you, sorry.
Could you mention the worker hub?
The work hub, yes.
Yeah.
So, and then going back to what you talked about earlier in terms of the hub, Worklink has identified to do a second building on our existing property, and that would be a work services hub or shared workspace hub. If the funding is there, we have again a full-time funding proposal writer looking into it right now, potentially buy the property next door and then turn that into a community social services business hub. So that's the long-term vision, the long-term plans that we have in place, and those will be carried on after my 10 weeks is up. So yeah, just to give you a quick overview. So I hope that addresses what you're talking about, but definitely value, and we definitely have to take a look at what that is as a whole picture.
Actually, just hoping I can make a point. Can I add something to your list of
Yes,
education?
education. Yes,
Yeah, we
absolutely.
have a fully accredited college here in Sooke that most people don't know about. And as far as economic development goes, my college of 24 students brings close to $500,000 in the off season to the community of Sooke because my students come and live here for 8 months. So with the amount of money they spend on groceries and gas and you name it, housing, it's quite an impact to the community. So if we can build more educational opportunities in the community that bring in people to come take education in our community, then again, there's quite an economic spin-off. I think it's number 2 on the list of economic development opportunities in most communities. So
Yeah, perfect.
just
Yeah,
to add to the list. Thanks.
we'll definitely add it. Again, this is just from yesterday's meeting. These are my quick notes that we had. It'll be far more detailed for sure.
So you're leaving the region, Peter?
When do I go?
Are you leaving the Sooke region or?
No, I'm staying. I'm just gonna
good. Then we
retire.
can
Just gonna
enlist you in the
retire.
future.
Probably take a contract or 2 just to get myself busy, keep my mind and
Good.
body active. Yeah,
Okay.
for sure. I'll be staying here
No
locally.
such thing as retirement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Peter. 6.2, Community Economic Development Committee year-end review and forward direction. Because one of those, in the small print of that terms of reference, it indicated that we would have a 1-year period at the mayor's pleasure. She and council chose the, I'm not sure, did we have any say in who was on this committee, or was that Maya's decision? We collectively made that call to bring you two and Gwen on. I should mention Gwen has sent her regrets today. She's battling the flu. And yeah, so we have one more meeting, I think, guaranteed. And then it's possible that we could go on bended knee to to her worship and say, hey, can you give us another 4 months? Because these have been pretty substantial meetings, I feel, and I trust you may have had the opportunity to look at the quick review I did of what we've done at these meetings and the motions arising from these meetings. And there's been a lot, maybe more than district staff are comfortable with, but we seemingly have advanced a few things. Things still outstanding. We did request a presentation by the Outdoor Recreation Council of British Columbia, which is not critical, and that can be laid aside. We have asked and council's confirmed that we will again discuss the Sooke Chamber of Commerce Service Agreement changes and the beautification and event pilot microgrant programs. That would be during budget discussions. We also asked back on September 8th, we asked on July 29th, on September 8th, council agreed to direct staff to present options to update the CED strategy and action plan as part of the 2026 budget deliberations. I think that was Catherine's motion to bring that forward. The pod project will be discussed with Tony and the Sooke family, Sooke family. That's June 27th, not like Canvas. And we also have, council has directed staff to write a letter to the Ministry of Transportation and Transit, acknowledging the ministry's responsibility for the Sooke River Bridge and requesting that which we at this committee requested. So let's have some thoughts. What do you feel this has been a worthwhile? It's been a year we've been on service, but we've had 6 meetings. This is our 6th meeting. So thoughts, Catherine? Has this been worth your time, and do you feel we've
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been an honor to join council members on this committee and give some feedback as a business owner and entrepreneur here in Sooke. I think that I did draft a report. I won't read the whole thing, but I will just touch on a couple of things. I do think it was important to establish those foundational relationships among community members, staff, and community partners, of course, and work towards a shared understanding of council's priorities and local context. So it's been great hearing from the community about what they're seeing here too. I do think that the structure of this committee has been a bit of a challenge in terms of getting items to the agenda and measurable success. So coming back to that, how are we measuring our success as a committee? And I was really disappointed, and this is a couple of meetings back, that council actually voted down a feasibility study for an economic development corporation. I think that was a big mistake because everything that we're talking about doing with the arts, with nonprofits, with business retention and attraction, and all of those pieces could fall under the role of an economic development corporation. So a little bit of mixed messaging, I would say, around that. Like council seems committed about, moving these priorities forward in the OCP and, at council meetings, but then didn't support that. So I'm a little confused, and I'm hoping to get a bit more clarity as we do a year-end review of what direction council really does want to go in. So that structure is still to be determined, I think, or maybe needs to be reviewed, and then clarifying roles and expectations of us as members. But overall, I think it's been great to be on the committee, get some feedback, offer some of our expertise, and learn a bit more about what we can do to help support economic development in Sooke. And of course, I wanted to mention our open house. So some of that came out of the frustration of being able to get things on the agenda. So saying, okay, well, what can we do outside of this committee? Well, we can just hold an open house and get some of the feedback actually that Peter mentioned is, doing a bit of an inventory about what's in the community, what are the priorities of business owners, and present that back to council. So I invite you all to come. Miigwech.
Thank you, Catherine. Very graciously said, and thank you for the critical feedback. That motion that Tony brought forward for the Economic Development Corporation, I think all of us on council were in favor. It's just a question of timing, because we are highly aware of staff capacity and resources. And to start that process within the 9 months remaining of our term, given all else that we've asked of staff, was, so I think as much as we all wanted to vote in favor of that, we did vote again. It was Tony's motion. It was really well worded, and I think the two of you may have collaborated on that. And it's absolutely a top priority within the action plan, strategic action plan. And I'm sure that the next mayor and council will when they do their strategic plan, and perhaps find some additional funding to support Gail in her work, because I don't know how much more you can carry on those narrow shoulders. Anyway, thank you for your report. Yes.
Can I just add one thing to that? Then if that is the concern, then I don't think that we should pursue or recommend pursuing an arts program. If that is the case, that there is staff capacity issues, then adding another project doesn't make sense to me.
Well, they're very different staff capacities required in each case. In the motions that we've looked at today, it would require support in principle from council and a high-level staff report on potential funding. And then, yeah, so very different to actually all the paperwork required and legal involvement. And so, yeah, so I take your point, but I would respectfully disagree. So, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, I also appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I just want to point out that, and again, no disrespect to the bureaucracy side of what we're talking about, but I believe that that's maybe why we only have a couple of us or three of us on this board, is because of time. And all of us entrepreneurs don't have a lot of time. And we want to really make sure that if we are going to put our time in, that it's useful and that we feel that there is some projection moving forward. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. The very first meeting, I suggested that we didn't need any capacity of anybody else here other than people that wanted to volunteer their time. I had a space for us to go and get information, because I'm sitting in the seat and I'm an entrepreneur and I have lots of ideas of how it can affect my business, but I'm not sitting in the seat for that reason. I'm sitting in the seat to actually affect the Sooke community that may affect my business, which is great. And the only way for me to effectively do that is to talk to the business community and go, hey, are my ideas the same as your ideas? And I suggested an opportunity for us to do that. And the bureaucracy got in the way. And I'm not saying it was anyone's fault here, but we weren't able to do the suggested opportunity to connect with people because we had not a budget for it, or we didn't have enough staff that could be there for it. And I'm maybe trying to figure out a way that we still have that capacity with staff, because I understand their capacity is only so much. And there is only so much budget for certain things we do, but we were able to just put on something that was very little low cost for us, using a space that we didn't need to use or pay for. And we weren't able to do it because of the capacity of either staff needing to be there or the cost of that happening. So I just wanted to point out that you may find people not being able to sit in these seats from a business aspect, which I would like to see more business people sitting in these seats, coming from our community. So there has to be a fine line between bureaucracy and action. And I find if the bureaucracy gets in the way of action, you'll find less people like us wanting to sit in these seats. So, and again, it was no disrespect to staff. I understand the positions they're in, but this little January 20th that we're putting on, I think could have been worked on where capacity didn't need to come from staff, and the support could have come from the community and this council, or the council that we're on, to be able to make that happen. And I just found that bureaucracy got in the way, which stepped us back to an area that I don't even know which way I'm going, because I don't know from the community which way they would like me to go, if that makes sense. So
Does make total sense, Scott,
Yeah.
and thank you for those comments. You know, I've been deeply I think the three of us have been deeply frustrated by, but we've learned we've come in aligned. We've been trained to understand that we are subject to the Local Government Act, Community Charter. These are public meetings. There are, you know, there's only so much that a local government can do. So if we remember the SIP report, it very clearly stated there is too much reliance on local governments and the province to initiate and enact these kind of things that need to arise from the grassroots. And hence, your session on Tuesday is exactly what needs happening, because you can work and be active and on point, and not with any requirement to report out and deal with the legislative nature of a standing committee, right? A standing committee, 4 councillors, 3 members of the public. So more power to you and just keep it going. Okay, so we've had two. Tony, what are your thoughts? And then Al.
The first is that I've really appreciated actually getting comments from Gwen, Catherine, and Scott.
Yeah.
I hear you guys all the time. I'm sorry, but that's, and from the people that are kind enough to come and actually, provide further information. It's also been really good to get a better understanding of what the progress says that we're making on various, strategic priorities we already identified, but council doesn't always know what's happening in the trenches in terms of how is this moving along, where are we at? Having regular updates from Ms. Scott has been actually really wonderful. To do it again, in terms of what Catherine was saying, I would definitely want to look at the terms of reference. Having to actually go through a strange workaround. One of the reasons that we didn't have time to bring forward the ECDEV Corporation was because it was refused the first time because of our terms of reference. And then it took a few months to actually go back through a back door to try and get it back over here and so on and so forth. This could have come forward nearly a year and a half ago with potentially plenty of time, except our terms of reference sucked. I'm sorry, in that particular way. Sorry, I'm being a little too harsh, just a little too harsh. So I would want to try and make sure that if we're trying to be responsive to the business community entrepreneurs, that we're a tiny bit more nimble in our terms of reference, in terms of actually taking input that comes through the committee and being able to put it forward. So that would be my comment. First thing to look is terms of reference, that we actually have the ability to bring anything forward even at reasonable speed. Sorry, and when I say reasonable speed, I mean the speed of local government normally, which is not even that fast. But what we were doing was much slower because of all this. So that's one thing.
So that's the nature of a select committee versus a standing committee.
Absolutely,
right?
but
So-
that's not what I think what this needs. Further to what Scott was saying, I think it's important to recognize that in terms of events, the Chamber of Commerce yourself, there are any number of better ways to actually run events rather than through the district and through district staff. I think what's really important though is to have a liaison coordination so that information is actually recognized. So if you have that official sort of recognition, then that data can actually be used, for example, in strategic planning and informed decision-making. And that's actually what the role of the committee is. It's not to run events and to do all this stuff. It's actually to inform council decision-making and to inform what we're doing with our strategic priorities and how they're moving forward. So the better that we can get solid information and not be completely out of touch, the better the work of staff and council is towards actually supporting the business community. And that's honestly, in some ways, the best value, because you can actually say, no, that's not going to work. Or what are you doing? Or honestly, when you shake your head, that's one of the most important things you can do. So don't underestimate the value of that. Okay. That's it. Thanks.
You, Al?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. First of all, I start off with what Scott said. When I first joined this committee, I made it quite clear that I'm not here to wring my hands and say all these wonderful things and accomplish nothing. And that frustrates me to the end, and that we're not only, I don't want to see us wasting your time as well as my time. It's been interesting. I'm a firm believer that economic development should be driven by private hands, not the district. We're here to assist, not to be the driver for economic development. I'm very pleased to hear, and I'll give a lot of credit to Gail, the MRDT is a game changer. I like the idea of this canvas committee. That gets the people in these areas together, away from us. And I agree with what Councillor Bateman said. Sometimes we dampen things as opposed to, we need to let the people that make things happen. I mean, what's going to do the economic development is somebody going to make some money out there, and I don't have a problem with that. And there's a lot of good things here, but I don't think they were happening because of us. I think they're happening anyways. In regards to Peter, that's moving along and didn't really need us as a driver. Gail is bopping along with this stuff long before we even started. And I love the idea. She's working on 3 financial streams. That's such her job. We pay her money. She needs to look at these things. So information, yes, I enjoy working and hearing your ideas, both Catherine and Scott. I'm not sure we're accomplishing much, to tell you the truth. I think we do, like Catherine said, we need some way to measure our success. And so I'm a bit on the fence on where we go from here. I want to make sure that what we do is beneficial to the community. Again, I'm excited about some of these other things and what you're doing on the outside, all these groups. I mean, it's great. But I'm not so sure what we're doing with it. You know, when it comes back to council, like you say, there's, you know, your idea didn't go very far because we have to deal with a whole big picture. So I'm on the fence as to where we go from here, and I want to see this community succeed, and I want to see the people in this room succeed. And I just want to know if we need to get out of the way or what we can do to assist. But we're not the driver here. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. I'll add that I think this committee has served the district well in terms of a number of things. One is a showcase and highlighting the work that's already happening, right? So this is an opportunity for us sitting in a council chamber with all 5 or 6 people out there potentially watching us. But nonetheless, the agendas are going out. We're capturing and encouraging, I feel, and reflecting back to Gail on the work she's doing. I think we planted a few seeds. We've indicated, particularly with the restart on the arts, I think is an important step that this committee's achieved. But I agree, it's not ever going to, given the nature of a standing committee, it was always going to be subject to a slow process. So I personally would like to see us continue meeting through June. Ask the mayor to extend our terms of reference for, that would be 3 more meetings, I guess, March, April, May, June, 4 more meetings. And or maybe we've reached the end of the road. Maybe next month with bringing forward those arts motions might be time to call it a day. It's going to be up to Mayor Tate. Rachel, can you share your thoughts on the potential future of this group?
Sure, through the chair to the committee. You know, as always, staff take direction from council on where staff capacity needs to be directed. And as highlighted, I think the intent of this committee was well intended, but to your point, I think the staff capacity piece, we're not adequately resourced to support the committee in the way that it seems like the committee needs to be supported. So I think it's timely to start this conversation with council and confirm what your desires are for the next steps, because as always, staff will do the direction of council, and if the direction is to carry on with this committee, then we'll come forward with some more formal recommendations, I think, on how this time, the next 4 meetings then could be time well spent with everybody and meet the needs of the community and the committee and ultimately of council. So yeah, I think we've been, it's been a bit of a challenge. We knew this was going to be a new thing. We're just cognizant and cautious, myself personally, based on the last round of committees we had. If we go too far into June, it just depends on what you were hoping to accomplish over the next 4 months. Because what happened last time with the last round of committees was right before the municipal election. Council received numerous recommendations and didn't feel comfortable actioning any of them and deferred them all to the next council, which created a significant delay. So my suggestion would be, if the recommendation this committee will have to council is to extend it till June, is maybe as well in February, be clear on what are you hoping to accomplish again over those next 4 meetings. So
We may well want to wrap it up, but we do have the meeting ahead. Tony.
In terms of just getting some feedback, for the committee, I was hoping also maybe that Ms. Scott could comment on whether or not the committee had been of value to her work in terms of what was going on. And I would also just like to mention that I've appreciated the committee, the whole, the land use committee and the ECDF committee, because instead of actually trying to discuss some of these items that are important, for example, to economic development in the regular meeting with a stack of other things to do and a million different directions to go in. We have a chance to focus on economic development with economic development experts in the community and from staff, and actually figure out as counselors, how do we feel about these things so that we actually come to a regular meeting, we can make better decisions. And honestly, again, making better decisions is ideally what this is all about, but please, oh, sorry, through the chair.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's a great opportunity to provide some feedback. I frankly felt it very time consuming, extra work, because it went from one meeting every 2 months to one meeting every month. And it meant that every 2 weeks I was having to put everything I'm working aside and get the reports done and get everything up through corporate services. And I think there was confusion initially with all of us and how this was going to work. How were we going to work together and provide input and action items? So I don't think we accomplished a great deal. We did accomplish, as Catherine says, a great opportunity to get to better understand the public, council members and staff members, and recognize the importance of community economic development for Sooke. But I think we've reached a point where we're all saying we need to restructure. And yes, we do need a committee, a CED committee. Every community I've ever worked in has a CED committee. Normally, you don't have as many counselors on that CED committee as we have. In my many years of working in this, it's usually one counselor is appointed by the counselor to be the representative on the committee.
Select committee.
It is that representative's role and responsibility to listen, take down notes, read the minutes, and take that back to council and share with council decisions that the committee is putting forward for council to approve. So I do think there's a better model out there. I would like to see far more local business representation at the table. That's what drives the economy. That's what Scott has said. It is business, commercial businesses that really should be sitting at the table, but it also should be representation from arts and culture, from health and wellness and that sort of thing, because that's all part and parcel of community economic development. We don't talk straight economic development anymore. That's an old thought process. It has to involve all components of community. So I think a restructuring probably after the election with the new mayor and council or whoever might be a good way to go, but I don't know. Maybe you want to do that before. The one thing I will say is I'm feeling more comfortable in the last couple of meetings than I was initially, because I really didn't understand what my role was. I honestly did not. I thought that I would have more leadership role rather than a support role. And I didn't. And I think with my background of 40 plus years and running these kind of CED authorities, that I would have more of a leadership role. So those are my comments.
Okay, Gail, thank you. It sounds like we have a takeaway here, and that is that the first CED committee was a standing committee with a single counselor appointee and a large group of subject experts. And so that might be our recommendation, that it was a mistake to be a select committee this time around, and in future, we'll take this an alternate approach or go back to the original model. Now, we do have a roundtable, and Marlene is here. Would you like to come and speak to us?
Hi, I am just from both the chamber and CERTA. We would like this committee to persist or a similar one, whether it's not the summer or after the elections, but it felt to me like it was a slow start and now we are all kind of like rolling and maybe, you know, are ready to get things done. And it would be a shame to stop right now as everybody has figured out the rules and processes a little bit better. And just reporting back and forth between this committee and, you know, the various boards is it's doing the thing, like it's valuable. So I just wanted from our perspective to add that feedback. Other than that, from the chamber, I just have that our AGM is coming up and then the CERTA AGM, I think next month, but that was part of your email, Jeff, so you already have that information.
And that you have a CERTA AGM next month?
I think it's in February or March.
Yeah.
It's not, you know,
Right.
not imminent, but
Yeah.
soon.
Well, thank you for that feedback. I agree we started slow, but there has been some momentum growing. And yet, I think the key is that continuity going into the next council. Councillor Pearson once said there should be the CED and land use committees should be automatic. They should be built in so that they just continue, so that there's not this lag time. Because we waited a fair bit of time to launch these committees. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are at almost quarter to 3, and I know there's cars to be fixed, and you have a meeting at 3. So we'll do any final comments in the roundtable. I also threw on the agenda this Deb Shank's business walk. Do we have time for that now? I felt it was an important one to bring up. Oh, Nancy.
If I could just have one moment to consult with our corporate
Yeah.
officer.
It's just it's an important one because we have RCMP is coming on Monday, and what this report
I can.
Let me go. Sorry, apologies. Just before we move on to the next item, on item 6.2, Mayor Tate had asked for some feedback on the committee, and I don't know if she anticipates trying to maybe start this conversation on the January 26th regular council meeting, so we can have some more information to provide this committee at the February meeting, which may potentially be the last meeting. So I just wanted to double check, confirm, you know, I think there's some mixed opinions on the future of this committee. And so just want to double check, is the committee comfortable maybe passing the first half of this motion just to provide this year-end summary to council on the consent agenda? And is there consensus on a potential recommended next step at this time, or you as the chair will just provide an update to the mayor? Is that how you want to approach this on
well, we may well have,
brainstorming for next steps?
we may well have a consensus already that the committee has done a good job and it's time to move on, or that's sort of what I'm hearing. Tony?
I don't think we actually have a consensus per se. I think we have some very good information. So for example, we've heard that once a month is too often. I would tend to agree. We've heard that continuing it into the next term somehow would be good. We don't even know if that's possible. I understand that may not be possible. And we've heard that it could be useful for the business community to continue having this conduit. And we've heard that there's really not much that the committee can get done in terms of further recommendations. Those are not actually things that lead to a consensus. They're going in different directions, at least as far as I'm concerned. So that's my thought.
Sure. I've heard everybody here, and my feeling is, and I would like us to poll, if this is the case, is that I agree that there's been some good things come out. Not as much as I would certainly like, But the basic nature of this committee is that it is at the pleasure of council. And council has basically said that no matter, I haven't said, but it's pretty well indicated that with anything coming out of here is not going to be action this year anyways. We, you know, most of the things that we are saying now that has a long-term implication, we're saying that it'll be the next term that will look after it. So my feeling is that this committee should probably stand down and then reform after the next election. And I think it has its value. I think the Economic Development Committee should be there. I'm just not sure with the time remaining and the will of council that we're going to get a whole lot through it. And maybe, so that's my feeling, is that for now, we've got to keep this a bit on the back burner. There's other things going on. Things are going to continue regardless of us being here. But I'm not so sure what the structure is if we're going to be very effective over the next 6 months. So that's my 2 minutes.
I would agree. I think this committee has come up with some really good opportunities. The action side is probably where we're lacking at the moment. But even just today, I think we've identified a few things that could help this committee. One of them would be maybe restructuring it. And I'm listening to Gail, and I agree with Gail that maybe having a bit of a role where she's connected to the committee a little bit, where we're coming up with ideas that she might already be overlapping. And if she's not able to make a meeting or whatnot, she doesn't even know if we're overlapping. And then we're trying to create an action that she's already in, part of. And I do believe that, and this would just be my suggestion, that we go back to about 4 years ago, we created an economic development group. I don't know if you guys know about that, but there was 5 business owners of 25 years of being in Sooke, and we were just a suggestion. We weren't there to need council. We weren't there to do anything other than to give suggestion to council, and then they can decide if this economic development group had some good opportunities, and within their capacity, could they then identify, maybe if there was 5 ideas we gave, there was maybe 1 or 2 that they could identify because they have funding for it or they have capacity for it. So I would just suggest maybe taking a look at the restructure of this, where we might have a council member. We had Bev Burr on our group, where we could invite her in because we wanted to communicate now. We had 1 or 2 meetings where we were just getting actions together. We didn't need staff there, and we didn't need counselors there necessarily. And then when we were ready to communicate with the council, we brought Bev in and explained to her what we were doing. We had these great ideas. It took us a couple meetings to do it. And then we had maybe, which we didn't at the time, we would have an economic advisor officer come in at the same time with that council member, listen to our ideas, and then take that with recommendations from our economic officer with a council member to go back to council. And these are some suggestions from this group that doesn't need staffing to be there to create these ideas. Now we have staffing there at the council meetings to then implement some of those ideas. So that would just be my suggestion, something like that, where there's less need of bureaucracy in the meetings, then bring in some bureaucracy to get it back to the bureaucracy to let them make decisions, if that makes sense. That would just be my suggestion for the group.
Yeah, as I recall that, you and Dave Evans and Doug Wittich and some others, you did come to council and present yourselves and say, look, we would like just let you know we're out there. So I think you and others can form exactly that kind of group, come to a council and say, look, we would like you to identify someone who will be a liaison with us. Yeah. Okay, so I see staff have brought up it's changed since I last saw it.
Yes.
Pardon, Chair, based on the discussion we just had, I believe that this captures it, but please let me know if you have any recommendations,
Yeah.
any further recommendations.
So let's put this motion on the floor. The second one. Al, would you read it on the record?
That's really economic development. Oh.
We got to get a staff person just to tell us this. That the Community Economic Development Committee recommend that the council conclude the committee's current term, not renew the committee in its current form, and consider alternative models for economic development input, such as a steering committee or other format. That's
So,
my motion.
seconder, please. Councillor St. Pierre has seconded. Motivate, do you need to motivate on that?
No, I
Or-
don't think so. I think everybody said it. There's value here. There's no doubt about it. There's value here, but in its present form, it's more, from what I get from the community members, it's more stifling than it is anything. And I can't say I'm exactly ecstatic the way this is handled. And maybe it could go back to, I mean, I really like the idea of, Gail saying, hey, just a second, I should be a mover and shaker here rather than just an informant. And to me, to have an economic development committee chaired by her, with one counselor on the committee to report back to council would be an ideal thing, and have 8 or 9 people from the community that can actually get some of these things done. So I'm fully in favor of this.
Okay, Tony?
I second it partly for discussion, partly because I do think it captures a lot of what we've been talking about. What it doesn't necessarily do is provide some kind of a conduit for the Chamber of Commerce and for CERT and so on and so forth to keep in touch. And we do have Gale, and we've got Shoreline and so on and so forth. Do we have other means of actually maintaining some kind of contact between the district and those entities until whenever committees form again, because we don't know when that'll be. So I'm a little concerned about a gap in communication over a long period of time. And I don't think that necessarily continuing the committee in this form would actually necessarily resolve that, but I do have a concern.
Okay, other comments? Catherine?
Can I make a suggestion for an amendment from a steering committee to a skills-based advisory body supported by external expertise or similar? Might address some of the concerns that Tony or Councillor.
Okay, so recite that again, please.
A smaller skills-based advisory body supported by external expertise.
Don't think they're or other format.
Chair, if I may, I believe the intention of the final wording of the or other format is to provide flexibility. And I'm certainly not in any way saying that the suggested amendment is bad or objectionable, but I think the putting that much detail in would potentially risk restricting the recommendation. While I believe the intent was to essentially send your feedback through to council to consider a wide variety of options. So I think the or other format was the intended there, which would encompass that suggestion.
Okay. Thank you, Greg.
So in terms of my concern, we could add an additional recommendation, options for maintaining continued contact with the business community or with the economic development community. Right now, I don't know what that might look like, because I'm certain that, Ms. Scott might have some good ideas. I'm certain there's good ideas and best practices out there that wouldn't necessarily involve this kind of clunky structure that's so time consuming and resource intensive. But if maybe staff could come back with some best practices in terms of maintaining continuity, and maybe even something that would bridge and ignore elections, that would be lovely. Okay, so just saying, if you could come back with some options in terms of how does the district maintain contact?
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, and we have first and second. I would like to amend this motion to conclude the committee's current term after its February meeting. You're okay with that, you guys? Okay.
And do we need the additional motion or?
No, it's an amendment to this current motion. So the second line, conclude the committee's current term after its February meeting.
No, I'm looking at what I was talking about.
Yeah, that detail.
Okay. So we'll need to vote on the amendment. Do we need to do that, Greg? Yes? Okay, so I'll move that amendment. Can I have a seconder for that? Tony, all approve? Yep. Okay, and the main motion? I'll just make a quick comment. I'm disappointed. I don't want to see the work of the last 8 months as a failure or as a flawed Frankenstein's experiment. It hasn't. I feel we have had some, as I've said earlier, some useful discussions. It has been awkward and bumpy at times. We have been picking up momentum. And yes, I agree. We need to knock this on its head after the February meeting, at which time I hope that we can get those motions through to council from the arts and conclude that little chapter in the committee's history. And otherwise, let's vote on this. All in favor? There we are. That's carried. And I did have this additional item on the agenda regarding,
Motion.
but it's,
We have a motion arising, hopefully, to add to this.
oh, do you have a motion arising?
Yeah.
Okay, Tony.
That staff provide alternatives to maintain contact with the ECDEV community in the long term. That's it. Council directs staff to provide alternatives to maintaining contact with the economic development community in the long term.
So that's above and beyond what Gail does.
Not sure. And I would leave this to staff to decide the parameters.
I'd like to speak to this. I think it's very important that we recognize this Visioning Sooke opportunity that Catherine and Scott have put together for January 20th, which is only next week. I don't want to lose sight of this. I think there will be some very good information coming out of whoever attends. And I think that's the kind of information that I want to hear. But at the same time, I just received today something I think both Scott and Catherine and Gwen would be very interested in knowing. And I shared it with Jeff, and we haven't had time to really discuss it, but I'll keep it short. The rural islands are one of the 13 municipalities under CRGD, just like Sooke is. And they struggle because they are out of the urban area. They successfully got a grant from the Ministry of Jobs and Economic Growth to do a pilot project. They recognize Sooke is very much similar to them, being rural, being coastal, having a lot of First Nations. And they have invited us to participate in this pilot project. And I'll just give you a quick description of it because I see it tying together beautifully with this Visioning Sooke. This pilot will fill a critical gap. We're inviting Sooke to participate as an economic development function. It will address the long-standing absence of a coordinated, granular, local economic data needed to inform effective local and regional decision-making. Ultimately, this data will serve as the foundation for empowering rural coastal communities to build stronger, more informed, and self-determined economies. The key step forward, achieving the goal, and they call themselves Communities Talking Initiative. We believe that community builders from across the rural coastal region could benefit from learning about the good work each organization is doing. So they have a survey. I would like, if we're going to disband our CED committee, do you think it'd be possible if we brought this forward at your Visioning Sooke meeting and perhaps we could get feedback? I don't know, I can send the email out to you, you can do some more thought about it, or are we disbanded right now?
We have at least one more meeting.
Okay, so I think there's an opportunity to gather a lot of really good information as well as from the Visioning Sooke, put it all together. And that will be the continuation of keeping us all together and informed.
Scott and Catherine, it's Tuesday at 4 o'clock at Stickleback. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Tuesday from 4 till 7.
4 to 7.
So
Okay.
you don't have to be there from 4 till 7. If you're a
Drop
business
in.
owner, drop
Yeah.
in open house whenever you want. Catherine and I and anyone else that wishes to be there from 4 till 7 to gather information. And we've got a couple of informative pieces that we're going to be adding to it. And Catherine and I can definitely take a look at that info and see if we can add it to the day. And but yeah, that day was to collect data to help steer up in some of the decisions that
Yeah.
we're trying to make. So having that February meeting is important because even if we are disbanding by then, at least we can give some information to the next group that might be involved in this and help them steer in the right direction. So.
And as Marlene says, Thursday is the Chamber of Commerce, AGM, 7 o'clock or 6:30 at WorkLink. Is it not? Somewhere around there. I've sent that out to everyone. So that's important as well. So I would like to just formally request that Deb's business walk, Chamber's business walk survey be added to the next agenda. And then we'll deal with it then. And on that note, we'll have an adjournment, please.
I still have
Yeah.
a motion that I was trying to.
Oh, you have, okay, right.
Okay, oh, and actually looks like something's already come up and I had some language, but yes, please. Yep, they're gonna refine it.
Yeah, okay. So this is being moved by Tony. Is there a seconder for this motion?
Was just pausing 1 second. We're just probably amending the language briefly. This was a staff recommendation. Counselor St. Pierre just walked over some different language, so we'll
I
just
didn't see it on the screen.
compare the two.
I thought they might be.
Yeah. No, we're not voting yet. I'm sorry, I jumped ahead.
I think he has to get out of here.
Oh, you gotta go.
Yeah, I gotta go teach it. You guys got 4 you? Yeah, I'm okay with that.
You're okay. Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott. Priorities all over. So the reason I'm suggesting this particular option is because our staff has limited capacity and there may be other means that don't strain the capacity quite as much. Scott was suggesting that they had a group of people. If there was some way to maintain contact with them, if there's some way to maintain contact with the Chamber of Commerce or other groups that doesn't require a huge amount of staff involvement, that's actually a good thing as long as we get the communication coordination
Well,
and we maintain contact.
you get the staff to communicate. We have a staff member that communicates with them. That's their job.
I'm just saying, leave it to staff to figure out what the best way to do it. And if that's what it turns out to be, that's great.
I think it's their job anyways. I don't think you need it, but anyways,
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor.
I can't support it.
Okay, I'll read this in, that the committee recommend that council direct staff to maintain communication and coordination with economic development agents in Sooke, should council decide to end the term of the committee. Okay, that's moved by Councillor St. Pierre. And is there a seconder? I'm afraid it's going to die on the floor. So that just shows our trust in Gail Scott and the system as it currently exists. And Ms. Yeah. Okay, so nice try. And of course, we all can attend. Pardon me? Oh, you didn't motivate. Okay, go ahead.
I trust, oh, you're right. There's no
Okay, we can, of course, attend the session on Tuesday, and we can go to chamber meetings, we can do all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So let's not, as elected representatives. Okay, so we have, I think we're complete. Let the January 14th, 2026 CED meeting be adjourned. The time being 3:06, moved by Strongwind and Beddoes. All approve? Yes.